What I think revolutionized society was the invention of print by Gutenberg. The availability of large-scale amount of data is giving us a pretty much similar type of revolution. Maybe in 5 centuries from now we'll be talking about the time in which data became available for everybody.
The rise of artificial intelligence is changing the world as we know it, from politics and job market to entertainment and education. Science is no exception. Technological progress is transforming scientific research. In the era of AI, research facilities depend more and more upon sophisticated computational resources. New kinds of scientists with strong informatic skills are emerging, and problems that were impossible to tackle now become within reach. Biomedical research is one of the areas more affected by this transformative process. Nowadays, artificial intelligence is an essential tool for health science, and in particular a set of techniques called machine learning. Are you curious to find out more about the modern changes in biomedical research? Let's discuss this topic with Giulio Caravagna, the principal investigator of the Cancer Data Science Laboratory at the University of Trieste. The research of his group applies artificial intelligence to the study of cancer and for the analysis of oncological data.
Artificial intelligence is a modern declination of a whole set of computational technologies that we use to extract important or, let's say, meaningful, statistically meaningful signals from the data. And we use this technology in order to teach, in a very broad sense, computers how to help us with a number of tasks that would require our manual intervention. Let's say to automatize our activity of processing certain amount of information. Classical examples are, for instance, recognition of faces or shapes inside an image. A human can definitely pick up, from a picture of a landscape where humans are located in the figure, but a machine can do the same, right? And can do the same in a much faster way, in a completely automatic way, if the machine is taught how to do this kind of recognition. There are several types of applications. All of them are based on the idea of us as humans in training the machine to do the task, what we call the task. The basic idea is to get the machine to aid us in doing the process of extracting information from data which are large in size, too large to be looked at by a human, that high dimensional, we say, which means that they contain a lot of different informations aggregated, which is difficult to collate for a single human being, and noisy, which that means is not exactly precise 100%. So noisy means we carry out a measurement and we don't get exactly the thing we want to measure. We get something that looks alike what we wanted to measure. So we need to clean up the noise out of the signal.
The Cancer Data Science Lab is based at the central campus of the University of Trieste, on the Scoglietto Hill. Going up to the big staircase in front of the main building of the university and crossing the narrow avenues of the campus crowded by students, there is the Department of Mathematics and Geosciences. It is a big building, with the front side almost entirely covered by large windows. The laboratory is based here. On the third floor, there are the offices of Giulio Caravagna and the other scientists of his group.
We are a group of interdisciplinary scientists. We have people with a background in classical, say, physics, mathematics, computer science, and biology and genetics. And we use the power of machine learning, or if you wish, artificial intelligence, to understand what we call the clonal dynamics of cancer. When computational scientists they join a domain which is maybe not their comfort zone, like biology, for instance, they have to catch up on all the knowledge they don't have. We cannot pretend that we work in completely isolated ways, that computational people don't interact with wet lab people. That's that's usually the way they're called, people that carry out experiments, we need to mind the gap between the computational analysis, the computer prediction, and the actual experimental setup that is used to validate the prediction or to generate the data from which we do the prediction. Their take on the problem is not as the take of, for instance, a hardcore physicist or a mathematician interested in the particular features of the equation, but have the deep of thought of understanding what is the actual next biological question that is important and how that can be framed within the context of machine learning. Through the interaction of, let's say, a computational biologist, a biologist, or a physicist and a mathematician, we are able to extract the most relevant information and trace better our path within this research field, which is very difficult, very crowded, and very competitive.
If you have paid close attention, you may have noticed the term machine learning. While the concept of artificial intelligence is broad and has many possible definitions, the term machine learning has a more specific meaning. It refers to a set of computational techniques for developing algorithms that improve automatically through experience. Nowadays, machine learning is dominating the field of AI, proving to be highly successful and helping to solve many challenging problems. But it's not only about scientific research. The rise of machine learning is also affecting and shaping the careers of many scientists.
So my story is, it starts when I did my PhD back in the days in Pisa, like almost 11 years ago now. I was a classical computer scientist interested in applying computational modeling to processes, dynamical processes, and I came to know about tumor cells and general applications to biology, epidemiology at the time, and I was very interested in applying my knowledge to something that looked a little bit practical. So I spent quite some years working on theoretical models and the way this could be, studied from the point of view of predictions, what we can actually do with this. But at the time, I still had the feeling that a lot of my work was based on hypotheses, assuming that we could measure this quantity or that other quantity, and it was very theoretical. Even though it meant to be practical, it still was very theoretical. Over my first postdoc, when I went to Milan, I got in touch with some people working on algorithmic problems related to cancer, and that's where I started thinking about the problem of understanding how cancers originate from a single cell and develop up to spread and become metastatic. And at the time, I had to get my hands dirty with a little bit more data in a classical Galilean sense, where you make a hypothesis, you carry out the measurement, and you check whether the measurement supports or not your hypothesis. And since then, by necessity, I had to bridge myself to machine learning, and I went to perfection myself for further postdocs in the UK for 5 years, and eventually I turned myself into what I call nowadays a cancer data scientist.
In 2020, Giulio Caravagna returned to Italy to work as a researcher in the University of Trieste. Here he started the Cancer Data Science Laboratory, thanks to a grant founded by the Italian Association for Cancer Research, together with other initiatives. The applications of machine learning to health science are flourishing, but what this approach can really achieve? And what happens exactly in the Cancer Data Science Lab?
Cancer is a very interesting and fascinating disease. It's intrinsically dynamic because it starts from a single cell and grows up as a population of cancer cells. And we have these days the possibility of sequencing, so that means reading out the DNA and other molecules that characterize the population of cells that constitute the cancer. And we use machine learning and artificial intelligence technologies to understand how the tumor mass is growing in a molecular level, and we use this information to predict what is the next move that the cancer is going to do. As you can understand, because treatment is about playing with this kind of dynamical process, having the possibility of forecasting and predicting the next step of a cancer might be a fundamental information to develop the best treatment for a patient.
Quite surprisingly, this is only half of the story. With machine learning, it's possible to study the temporal evolution of cancer, forward but also backward. This means not only predicting its progression, but also tracing back its history to the first cell that started to proliferate abnormally.
If you think it's not that counterintuitive, that to understand the future, you need to be able to trace back the past, right? Because if we want to predict our let's say we have a pool of cells that compete for survival each other. These are like different cells from the same cancer. They have different molecular characteristics, and each one of them competes against the others because the number of resources in the individual are, let's say, finite. It's not infinite. Not everybody can survive forever. So they compete and somebody wants to win. Well, the dynamics that you can project in the future can also be projected in the past and can be used to understand what is sometimes called the lineage history of the cancer. So as much as we look at, two individuals on this planet and we can do phylogenetic inference and understand who's the ancestor they derive from and trace them back in the past, we can try to do the same kind of analysis with some caveats and differences, because we're talking not about individuals, but we're talking about cells within a single tumor mass. But we can exactly reason in the same way and try to trace back the cancer growth up to the first cell that started all the process.
With modern technologies, it's possible to learn many biological informations about an organism or even a single cell. Its whole genome, the set of proteins expressed by that cell, or the RNA transcripts. Machine learning allows to connect all these different aspects and analyze them in an integrated way. This approach, called multiomics, allows scientists to study complex biological problems and find a new association between different features of the same entity. And in addition, it also allows to deal efficiently with large amounts of data. Consider that sequencing the whole genome of a single person produces more than 160 gigabytes of informations.
You can imagine machine learning as a set of tools, like a screw that you can use to get more information out of your data. This means that if you have a lens or a telescope that allows you to observe nature at a higher resolution than before, of course this will give you the possibility of deepening your understanding of the nature and carrying out new science, new by means of really technologically new science, creating new tools for other people, but also understanding questions and approaching questions that before seems to be unapproachable. As much as the revolution of computing, so the invention of domestic computers, changed the way we analyze data and therefore allows us to bring, humans to the moon with the same kind of facility at a different time scale and different pace, of course, the invention of new technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning will give us the possibility of refining our understanding of nature and therefore developing new science.
Artificial intelligence is triggering a huge transformative process in science. This is affecting many research fields and the people working in those areas, but also scientific institutions are changing. More advanced technologies are necessary for modern research, and this requires also new policies, adapted to the current situation.
What I think revolutionized society was the invention of print by Gutenberg, it's like 500 years ago or so. The availability of large-scale amount of data is giving us a pretty much similar type of revolution. Maybe in 5 centuries from now we'll be talking about the time in which data became available for everybody. Today we have a lot of efforts in sharing data with fair access policies, which means that everybody should be able to access data from all over the world, same amount of data. Even if you cannot generate, you should be able to access that so that, progress can work at the same pace in different parts of the planet. This, of course, requires institutes, research institutes, but also the private sectors to have adequate computational resources for data sharing, data management, and computational processing. So, for instance, examples are the deployment of large-scale graphical processing units, or in general, the construction of huge, important, high-performance computing facilities. These are new things that today look like the new, avenues for research, but they for sure in 50 years from now, these will be like the classical daily lab facilities to carry out research in the modern era of data science and machine learning for big data.
Our conversation with Giulio Caravagna stops here, but it seems that big changes are coming. Modern technologies, and machine learning in particular, are transforming the way research is conducted. In the near future, the rise of AI could reshape the architecture of science, giving to a new generation of scientists powerful tools to tackle old and new problems. And some of these transformations are already happening. Thank you for listening. My name is Enrico Schlitzer, and this podcast episode was realized in collaboration with Gioele Lecchio, Lorenzo Marchesi, and Alberto Monte.